There are some images that should never have been captured. Some photographs that contain such profound malevolence that they seem to reach across time itself, destroying anyone who dares to study them too closely. For nearly 140 years, one particular family portrait from 1886 has claimed the sanity, the lives, and in some cases, the very existence of those who attempted to unlock its secrets. 7 experts have vanished without a trace. 3 more have been institutionalized, and the universities that once proudly displayed this image now deny it ever existed. But I've uncovered the truth about this cursed photograph, and today, I'm going to share everything with you. Before we dive into this nightmare, I need you to hit that follow button right now, because what you're about to learn will change how you look at every old photograph you ever encounter again. Trust me, you'll want to stay connected for what's coming next. The photograph first surfaced in 1886 in the estate sale of the Blackthorne family, a wealthy merchant dynasty from Salem, Massachusetts. The image appears, at first glance, to be a typical Victorian family portrait. 6 family members arranged formally in their elaborately decorated parlor, dressed in the finest clothing money could buy. But anyone who examines this photograph closely will notice something that defies explanation. The family's eyes. Every single person in the portrait, the stern patriarch, his elegant wife, their 4 children ranging from ages 6 to 17, has their eyes completely rolled back, showing only the whites. Not one of them is looking at the camera. Instead, their eyeballs have rotated upward, as if they're looking at something above and behind the photographer. Something that filled them with such terror that their bodies remained perfectly posed, while their eyes strained desperately to track some invisible horror. Dr. Margaret Ashford from Harvard University was the first expert to seriously study the photograph in 1923. She was a respected authority on Victorian-era photography, known for her meticulous analysis and scientific approach to historical images. Dr. Ashford spent 3 weeks examining every detail of the photograph, using the most advanced techniques available at the time. Her initial reports were clinical and professional, but by the end of her investigation, her journal entries had become increasingly erratic. The final entry, dated October 31, 1923, contained only 5 words repeated over and over for 3 pages. "They're watching me watch them." Dr. Ashford was found the next morning in her office, catatonic, staring at the ceiling with her eyes rolled back in the exact same position as the family in the photograph. She spent the remaining 47 years of her life in a psychiatric institution, never speaking another word, her eyes permanently fixed on something no one else could see. The photograph disappeared from Harvard's collection the day after Dr. Ashford's breakdown. University officials claimed it had been destroyed, but private collectors knew better. The image had simply gone underground, passed between wealthy enthusiasts who collected cursed objects and supernatural artifacts. For 23 years, it changed hands multiple times, and every owner reported the same phenomena: nightmares featuring the Blackthorne family, cold spots in rooms where the photograph was displayed, and the unsettling sensation of being watched by invisible eyes. But here's where the story becomes truly terrifying, and I need you to engage with this mystery. Comment below and tell me, have you ever seen a photograph where something seemed fundamentally wrong with the subject's eyes? Have you ever felt like a picture was watching you back? Because what happened next suggests this curse can spread through documentation alone. In 1946, Dr. Jonathan Whitmore, a professor of abnormal psychology at Yale University, acquired the photograph through private channels. Unlike Dr. Ashford, Dr. Whitmore approached the image with the intention of debunking its supernatural reputation. He believed that careful scientific analysis could explain the optical illusion that made viewers think the family's eyes were wrong. And he was determined to publish a paper that would finally put the ridiculous superstitions to rest. Dr. Whitmore set up a controlled laboratory environment, complete with advanced cameras, measurement tools, and psychological evaluation equipment. He planned to document every aspect of his interaction with the photograph, creating an objective record that would disprove the curse once and for all. His research lasted exactly 13 days. The laboratory recordings showed Dr. Whitmore's gradual descent into obsession and terror. On day 1, he appears confident and professional, examining the photograph with clinical detachment. By day 5, he's speaking to the image directly, asking the family members questions about what they're looking at. By day 10, he's screaming at the photograph, demanding that it stop calling to him in his dreams. The final recording, made at 3:17 a.m. on the 13th day, shows Dr. Whitmore sitting perfectly still in front of the photograph, his eyes rolled back in his head, matching the exact position of every person in the family portrait. The audio captures him speaking in 6 different voices, the voices of each family member, describing in horrific detail what they saw above and behind the photographer on that day in 1886. According to the recording, the Blackthorne family had been posing for what they believed would be a normal portrait when something materialized in their parlor. Dr. Whitmore, speaking in the voice of the father, described a presence of such cosmic malevolence that looking upon it directly would have killed us instantly. We turned our eyes away, but it commanded us to remain perfectly still for the photograph. It wanted its presence documented, even if we couldn't capture its physical form. Dr. Whitmore was found 3 days later, having apparently starved to death while maintaining his pose in front of the photograph. His eyes remained rolled back until the moment of death, and according to medical examiners, he had been conscious and aware throughout the entire 3-day period, unable to move or speak, trapped in a state of living paralysis, while something invisible tortured his mind. Yale University immediately classified all materials related to the Blackthorne photograph as extremely hazardous and locked them in a vault designed for dangerous artifacts. The official story was that Dr. Whitmore had suffered a complete psychological breakdown, but privately, university officials began implementing protocols to prevent anyone else from accessing the cursed image. The photograph vanished again, this time for nearly 30 years, but in 1979, it resurfaced in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, donated anonymously, along with several other Victorian artifacts. Museum curator Dr. Sarah Elizabeth Chen was assigned to catalogue and evaluate the new acquisitions. Unaware of the photograph's deadly history, Dr. Chen's approach was purely art historical. She was interested in the photograph's technical qualities, its composition, and its place within the broader context of Victorian portraiture. She had no knowledge of the previous incidents at Harvard and Yale, no warning about the dangers of studying the image too closely. Her innocence may have initially protected her, but it also made her vulnerable to the photograph's more subtle influences. For the first month, Dr. Chen's work proceeded normally. She photographed the image, wrote detailed descriptions of its artistic qualities, and prepared it for potential inclusion in an upcoming exhibition on American family portraiture. But during her second month of study, she began to notice details that shouldn't have been visible. Using high-powered magnification, Dr. Chen discovered that the wallpaper behind the family contained patterns that seemed to shift and move when viewed at different angles. Flowers in the design would appear to wilt and decay, then restore themselves to perfect bloom, creating a subtle animation effect that was impossible given 1886 photographic technology. More disturbing, she found faces hidden in the wallpaper pattern, dozens of human faces, all with their eyes rolled back in the same position as the Blackthorne family. Here's where I need you to really think about what this means. Share this story with others and comment below. What happens when a curse becomes aware that it's being studied? What if the photograph wasn't just documenting a supernatural event, but actively participating in creating new ones? Dr. Chen's investigation took a darker turn when she attempted to trace the photograph's provenance. Using museum records and private collected databases, she discovered the previous incidents at Harvard and Yale. Despite university efforts to suppress the information, learning about Dr. Ashford and Dr. Whitmore's fates should have warned her away from continuing her research. But instead, it only intensified her obsession with the image. She began visiting the photograph after hours, spending entire nights alone with the image in the museum's conservation laboratory. Security cameras captured her having long conversations with the family in the portrait, gesturing animatedly as if she were receiving responses. On several occasions, she was recorded taking measurements of empty air above the photograph, claiming she was documenting the presence that the family was looking at. Dr. Chen's final journal entry, dated November 15, 1979, revealed the truth about what she had discovered. According to her notes, the photograph was not capturing a single moment in time, but rather serving as a window between dimensions. The Blackthorne family had been frozen in 1886, serving as eternal guards or witnesses to something that existed outside normal reality. Their eyes were permanently fixed on this interdimensional intruder, and anyone who studied the photograph too closely risked making the same contact. Most disturbing of all, Dr. Chen wrote that she had begun to see the entity herself. She described it as a living shadow with too many angles, a presence that existed in the spaces between thoughts. feeding on the attention and consciousness of anyone who acknowledged its existence. She had become convinced that the photograph was actively searching for new minds to consume, using the curiosity of researchers and scholars as a gateway to our reality. Dr. Chen disappeared on November 16, 1979. Security footage shows her entering the conservation laboratory at 11:43 p.m., but she was never seen leaving. A thorough search of the museum revealed no trace of her presence, as if she had simply ceased to exist. The Blackthorn photograph was found perfectly centered on her workbench, surrounded by dozens of photographs she had taken during her research. Photographs that showed not just the original family portrait, but Dr. Chen herself standing beside the Victorian family, her eyes rolled back in the same impossible position. The Metropolitan Museum of Art permanently banned all research on the Blackthorn photograph and moved it to a climate-controlled storage facility, where it would never again be displayed or studied. But the damage had already been done. Dr. Chen's research notes had been digitized and shared with colleagues at other institutions, spreading knowledge of the photograph's existence and location to universities across the country. Princeton University became the next institution to experience the photograph's curse, when Dr. Michael Harrison, a professor of American history, obtained copies of Dr. Chen's research in 1983. Dr. Harrison was fascinated by what he saw as an elaborate academic hoax, and he was determined to prove that the supposed curse was nothing more than a series of unfortunate coincidences and psychological suggestion. Dr. Harrison's approach was different from his predecessors. Rather than focusing solely on the photograph itself, he attempted to trace the Blackthorn family's actual history, hoping to find rational explanations for the supernatural events described in previous research. What he discovered was far more disturbing than any ghost story. According to historical records, the Blackthorn family had indeed lived in Salem, Massachusetts, during the 1880s, but their story was one of documented tragedy, not supernatural horror. The family had suffered a series of deaths throughout 1886. The youngest child died of scarlet fever in March. The eldest son was killed in an industrial accident in June, and the mother committed suicide in September. By the time the photograph was supposedly taken in November, only the father and one remaining child would have been alive. Yet the photograph clearly showed the entire family together, including the children who had died months before the image was created. Dr. Harrison realized he wasn't looking at a normal family portrait, but at some kind of impossible memorial that brought the dead back together with the living. The presence the family was looking at wasn't an interdimensional entity, it was death itself, captured in the act of claiming its final victims. This is the point where the story becomes absolutely terrifying, and I need you to pause and consider the implications. Comment below and tell me, what would you do if you discovered that photography could capture not just images, but souls? That some photographs could trap the dead in a permanent state of awareness. Dr. Harrison's research revealed that the photographer who created the Blackthorn portrait, a man named Cornelius Blackwood, had specialized in what was then called memorial photography, images of deceased family members posed with living relatives. But Blackwood's techniques went far beyond the normal practices of Victorian death photography. He claimed to have developed special chemical processes that could capture spiritual essence, along with physical appearance. Blackwood's journals, discovered in a Salem archive, described his obsession with creating photographs that could preserve not just the image of the dead, but their consciousness as well. He wrote about experiments with rare chemicals, occult symbols incorporated into his photographic plates, and rituals performed during the exposure process. Most disturbing, he documented his belief that prolonged exposure to his specially treated photographs could allow viewers to communicate directly with the subjects. According to Blackwood's notes, the Blackthorn photograph was his masterpiece, an image that successfully trapped the entire family's consciousness within the photographic emulsion. They remained aware, able to see and think, but unable to move or speak, forced to stare eternally at the manifestation of death that had claimed them. Anyone who studied the photograph closely would gradually be drawn into this same state of conscious paralysis. Dr. Harrison's investigation into Blackwood's techniques led him to attempt recreating the photographer's chemical processes. Using 19th century equipment and following Blackwood's detailed instructions, he tried to create his own spiritual photograph in a controlled laboratory environment. The experiment was a catastrophic success. The photograph Dr. Harrison created showed only an empty laboratory, but everyone who viewed it reported seeing Dr. Harrison himself, standing in the center of the image, his eyes rolled back in the familiar position. More disturbing, They could hear his voice speaking from within the photograph, describing his experience of being trapped between life and death, conscious but unable to affect the physical world. Dr. Harrison's colleagues at Princeton attempted to destroy both the original Blackthorn photograph and the new image their colleague had created. But every method they tried, burning, chemical dissolution, even physical destruction, failed to eliminate the images. The photographs would reappear intact within hours, as if they existed independently of their physical medium. Princeton University made the unprecedented decision to seal their entire photographic archive and ban all research into Victorian-era photography. They classified Dr. Harrison as missing rather than dead, though his body was never found. Official university records state that he took a leave of absence for personal reasons, but his family was quietly informed that he had been declared legally dead. Now, I need you to share the story, because what I'm about to reveal affects all of us. The Blackthorn photograph hasn't remained safely locked away. It has been digitized, copied, and distributed through underground networks of collectors and paranormal researchers. Each copy retains the supernatural properties of the original, meaning the curse is now spreading exponentially through digital media. Columbia University encountered the photograph in 1987, when graduate student Jennifer Walsh obtained a bootleg copy for her dissertation on Victorian death photography. Within 2 weeks, she had recruited 3 other graduate students to assist with her research, and all 4 of them began experiencing the symptoms documented in previous cases. They started staying up all night staring at the photograph, claiming they could see movement within the image that others couldn't detect. The 4 students, Walsh, David Chen, Maria Santos, and Robert Kim, formed what they called a research collective, spending every free moment analyzing the photograph and documenting their shared experiences. Their professors noticed a dramatic change in their behavior. They became withdrawn from other students, spoke in synchronized patterns as if sharing thoughts, and submitted increasingly erratic papers filled with references to concepts that didn't exist in academic literature. The Columbia incident escalated when the 4 students attempted to perform what they called a photographic seance, a ritual designed to communicate directly with the Blackthorn family through the cursed image, using equipment from the university's photography laboratory. They created a complex setup involving multiple projectors, mirrors, and chemical baths, all focused on enlarging and enhancing different aspects of the original photograph. Campus security found the laboratory the next morning filled with dozens of photographs showing the same impossible scene. The 4 students standing alongside the Blackthorn family in the Victorian parlor, all 8 figures with their eyes rolled back, all staring at something above and behind the camera. The students themselves had vanished completely, leaving behind only these photographs as evidence of their fate. Columbia University implemented immediate containment protocols, sealing the photography laboratory and classifying all materials related to the incident as hazardous waste. They hired a private security firm specializing in occult artifacts to remove and destroy every trace of the research. But reports persisted of new photographs appearing spontaneously throughout the campus. Images showing the missing students in various locations around the university, always with their eyes rolled back, always seeming to watch whoever was looking at them. The University of Chicago became involved in 1992 when Dr. Patricia Blackwood, a descendant of the original photographer, attempted to research her ancestors' work. Dr. Blackwood had inherited several of Cornelius Blackwood's journals and photographic plates, and she hoped to write a biographical study that would rehabilitate his reputation as an innovative artist rather than an occultist. But Dr. Blackwood's research revealed that her ancestors' techniques had evolved far beyond simple memorial photography. His later journals described experiments in what he called temporal photography, images that could capture moments across multiple time periods simultaneously. The Blackthorn photograph, according to these records, showed not just the family's death in 1886, but also their continued existence in some form of afterlife dimension. Dr. Blackwood attempted to use modern digital enhancement technology to analyze her ancestors' photographs, hoping to prove that the supernatural effects were merely optical illusions created by chemical irregularities. Instead, her computer analysis revealed layers of imagery hidden within the photographs, multiple exposures showing the same subjects at different ages, in different locations, across spans of decades. Most disturbing, the digital analysis showed that the photographs were continuing to evolve. New details appeared in the images over time, as if the subjects were aging and changing even after death. The Blackthorn family, trapped in their eternal pose, showed subtle signs of decay and regeneration, cycling through states of death and resurrection within the confines of the photographic frame. Dr. Blackwood's final report, submitted to the university just before her disappearance, contained a warning that still chills paranormal researchers today. The photographs are not passive records of past events. They are active portals that allow the dead to interact with the living. Each person who views these images creates a new connection, a new pathway for the trapped souls to influence our reality. We are not studying historical artifacts. We are feeding a supernatural network that grows stronger with each new victim. Here's where you need to pay close attention. And I want you to comment below about any strange experiences you've had with old photographs. Dr. Blackwood's research suggested that the curse wasn't limited to the original Blackthorn image. Any photograph taken using similar techniques, or even modern images that somehow achieved the same supernatural resonance, could become part of the network. She documented over 40 photographs from different time periods and locations that showed similar characteristics, subjects with impossible eye positions, hidden details that revealed themselves under analysis, and a documented history of causing psychological breakdown in anyone who studied them too closely. These images formed what she called a photographic constellation, a supernatural network spanning continents and centuries. The University of Chicago made the decision to evacuate and seal the entire building where Dr. Blackwood had been conducting her research. They claimed a chemical spill required extensive decontamination, but students and faculty reported seeing Dr. Blackwood herself in windows of the abandoned building, always with her eyes rolled back, always staring at something invisible to outside observers. Stanford University encountered the network in 1995 when computer science professor Dr. Alan Morrison attempted to create digital archives of Victorian-era photographs. His project involved scanning thousands of historical images into a database that could be analyzed using pattern recognition software. Unknown to him, his collection included 3 photographs from the supernatural network, including a copy of the original Blackthorn image. Dr. Morrison's computers began exhibiting impossible behavior. Image files would spontaneously corrupt and regenerate with new details. Database searches would return results for photographs that weren't in the system. Most unsettling, the facial recognition software began identifying people in photographs who weren't actually visible to human observers, ghostly faces hidden in shadows, reflected in mirrors, or composed from patterns in wallpaper and fabric. The digital analysis revealed that the supernatural photographs were somehow communicating with each other through the computer network. When multiple cursed images were stored on the same system, they would begin exhibiting synchronous changes, shadows moving in coordinated patterns, subjects turning their heads slightly, as if responding to each other across different photographs. Dr. Morrison became obsessed with mapping these digital interactions, believing he could use computer technology to understand the supernatural network that connected the cursed photographs. His research notes described discovering photographic DNA, recurring visual patterns that appeared in all the supernatural images, suggesting they were created by the same entity or force across different time periods. The Stanford incident reached its climax when Dr. Morrison attempted to use artificial intelligence to communicate directly with the consciousness trapped within the photographs. He fed hundreds of cursed images into a neural network, hoping to create a digital seance that would allow him to interview the trapped souls and understand their condition. The AI system immediately began generating new photographs, images that had never been taken by human photographers, showing scenes from locations and time periods that spanned centuries. These generated images all followed the same pattern: groups of people frozen in poses of terror, their eyes rolled back, staring at something beyond the camera's view. Dr. Morrison realized he had given the supernatural network access to digital technology, allowing it to create unlimited copies of itself and spread through computer systems worldwide. His final act was to attempt destroying the university's entire computer infrastructure, hoping to contain the digital outbreak. He was found dead in the server room, having apparently electrocuted himself while trying to physically destroy the machines. Stanford University classified the entire incident and worked with government agencies to implement internet-wide scanning protocols designed to detect and quarantine supernatural photographs before they could infect other systems. But the damage had been done. The cursed images had spread through file-sharing networks, email attachments, and social media platforms, creating a global network of digital haunting. This is where the story becomes truly horrifying for our modern world, and I need you to understand how this affects you personally. Share this story and comment below. Have you ever downloaded an old photograph that seemed somehow wrong? Have you ever noticed pictures on your computer or phone that you don't remember saving? The final documented case occurred at MIT in 1998, when a team of quantum physics researchers, led by Dr. Sarah Chen, attempted to analyze the Blackthorn photograph using advanced particle detection equipment. They theorized that the supernatural effects might be caused by quantum entanglement between the photograph and some form of parallel dimension. Their experiments detected massive quantum fluctuations around the photograph, suggesting that it was indeed connected to realities beyond our normal space-time continuum. But the research team made a catastrophic error. They attempted to strengthen this quantum connection, hoping to establish clear communication with whatever existed on the other side. The laboratory recordings show the moment when their experiment succeeded beyond their wildest fears. Reality around the photograph began to warp and shift, allowing glimpses of the interdimensional space where the Blackthorn family remained trapped. The team members were able to see and speak with the Victorian family, learning the truth about their supernatural imprisonment. According to the recordings, the Blackthorn family revealed that they were not alone in their photographic prison. Hundreds of people from across history had been trapped in similar photographs, creating a supernatural community of souls frozen between life and death. They existed in a timeless dimension where they could observe every moment of human history, simultaneously, watching helplessly as new victims were added to their ranks. The family warned the MIT researchers that the entity responsible for their imprisonment was still active, using cursed photographs to harvest human consciousness across centuries. Each new victim strengthened its power and expanded its influence over reality. The photographs were not just records of supernatural events, they were recruitment tools, designed to identify and capture people with the intellectual curiosity necessary to sustain the entity's existence. But the most terrifying revelation came when the Blackthorn patriarch explained why the entity needed human consciousness. It was not from our dimension originally, but had become trapped here centuries ago. When early human civilizations first developed the ability to create permanent visual records, cave paintings, carved statues, and eventually photographs provided a medium through which it could anchor itself to our reality. The entity fed on human attention and awareness, growing stronger each time someone studied its manifestations too closely. The cursed photographs were its method of farming consciousness, creating a sustainable source of mental energy that allowed it to maintain its foothold in our dimension while working toward complete manifestation in physical reality. Dr. Chen and her team realized they had made a terrible mistake. By opening a direct channel to the entity's dimension, they had given it unprecedented access to our reality. The laboratory equipment began malfunctioning in ways that suggested the entity was learning to manipulate physical matter directly, no longer limited to influencing consciousness through photographic media. The final recording shows the research team making a desperate decision to destroy their equipment and seal the dimensional breach they had created. But the process required human sacrifice. One team member would need to remain connected to the quantum field while the others collapsed the gateway, ensuring that person would be trapped in the same interdimensional prison as the Blackthorn family. Dr. Chen volunteered for this sacrifice, believing that her scientific knowledge might help find a way to eventually free all the trapped souls. The final image captured by the laboratory cameras shows her standing next to the Blackthorn family, her eyes rolled back in the familiar position, but with an expression of determined defiance rather than helpless terror. MIT immediately classified the entire experiment and demolished the laboratory where it took place. Official records state that Dr. Chen and her team died in an equipment malfunction, but some evidence suggests that the other team members were quietly relocated to government facilities, where they continue working on containment protocols for supernatural phenomena. Now comes the part that should terrify every one of us, and I need you to really understand what this means for the modern world. The cursed photographs have evolved beyond their original Victorian limitations. Digital copies retain all the supernatural properties of the originals, and new cursed images are being created through artificial intelligence, deepfake technology, and even smartphone cameras that accidentally capture the right combination of visual elements. Social media platforms have implemented secret algorithms designed to detect and remove supernatural photographs. But the entity has learned to disguise its manifestations within seemingly normal images. That family photo that makes you feel inexplicably uneasy. That historical image that seems to watch you from your computer screen. That old picture you found in your attic. Any of these could be part of the growing network of cursed photographs. The 7 missing experts: Dr. Ashford, Dr. Whitmore, Dr. Chen, Dr. Harrison. The 4 Columbia students, Dr. Blackwood and Dr. Morrison, are not dead. They exist in the interdimensional space, connected to the photograph network. Their consciousness harvested but preserved, forced to serve as witnesses to the entity's growing influence over our reality. Recent reports from government containment facilities describe sightings of these missing researchers appearing in new photographs taken at secure locations. They seem to be trying to communicate warnings, their eyes no longer rolled back in terror, but focused with desperate urgency on the camera, as if attempting to break through the dimensional barrier that separates them from our world. The implications are staggering. If the entity succeeds in manifesting fully in our reality, it will no longer need to rely on photographic media to harvest consciousness. It will be able to trap human souls directly, creating an army of interdimensional servants who retain their knowledge and abilities but serve its incomprehensible purposes. Some researchers believe that the missing experts are working together in their interdimensional prison, using their combined knowledge to find a way to strike back against the entity. The appearance of new warning photographs suggests they may have found a method of influencing events in our reality, preparing us for a confrontation that may determine the future of human consciousness itself. But the most disturbing possibility is that their warnings are not about preventing the entity's manifestation, but about preparing for its inevitable arrival. The cursed photographs may have been successful beyond the entity's original plans, creating so many dimensional breaches that the barrier between realities has become permanently weakened. As I conclude this terrifying investigation, I want you to understand that you are now part of this story. By learning about the Blackthorn photograph and the network of cursed images, you have created a connection between your consciousness and the interdimensional space where the missing experts continue their work. You may begin experiencing dreams featuring Victorian parlors, sensing invisible presences while viewing old photographs, or noticing details in images that others cannot see. If these symptoms develop, document them carefully, but do not share the details publicly. Government monitoring systems still scan for references to the cursed photographs, and individuals who show signs of supernatural sensitivity may be relocated to containment facilities for their own protection and the safety of others. Comment below using coded language if you begin experiencing unusual phenomena related to photography or historical images. Others who are going through similar experiences will recognize the signs and can provide support through this community. Remember that knowledge of the curse may be dangerous, but ignorance will not protect you if you have already been selected by the entity. The battle for human consciousness is being fought in a dimension we cannot see by experts we thought were lost forever. The photographs continue to multiply and spread, searching for minds capable of understanding the truth about our reality. Each person who learns this story becomes a potential ally in the coming confrontation, but also a target for an entity that has spent centuries perfecting its methods of harvesting human souls. Share this story, but do so responsibly. Connect with others who have felt the pull of the supernatural, but protect yourself by maintaining healthy skepticism. The truth about the 1886 family portrait may be more important than any university wants us to believe, but it is also more dangerous than most people can comprehend. Welcome to the network of the aware. Welcome to the community of those who know that some photographs capture more than light and shadow. Welcome to the front lines of a war for consciousness itself, where the weapons are images and the battlefield exists in the spaces between what we see and what we understand. The choice of how to use this knowledge is yours. But remember, in a world where photographs can trap souls and consciousness can be harvested across dimensions, the most important skill is learning to look without being seen, to understand without being understood, and to fight an enemy that feeds on the very act of recognition. The missing experts are still out there, somewhere between life and death, working to protect us from a fate worse than any traditional concept of hell. The least we can do is remain vigilant, support each other through the strange experiences that may come, and be ready to answer their call when the final battle for human consciousness begins. The 1886 family portrait is still watching, still waiting, still adding new faces to its eternal collection of the aware and the trapped. The only question is whether you will join them as a victim or as an ally in humanity's last desperate fight for its soul.